Myself, Jayanta Mukhopadhyay, Professor of Department of Computer Science and Engineering and Dean of Outreach, will be presenting you many of our faculty members who have brought distinctions and laurels to our institute for their contributions, exemplary contributions in doing cutting edge research in science and technology. So today, let me introduce a person who is not only an internationally recognized researcher and a reputed academician, but also an astute administrator, Professor Suman Chakraborty. He is the Dean of Sponsored Research and Industrial Consultancy, coordinating research and development activity of IIT Kharagpur. He is a Professor of Mechanical Engineering. Suman is internationally known for his research in fluid dynamics for tiny devices, which is attributed as the field for microfluidics and nanofluidics. So, Suman won Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Prize in 2013, INSA Young Scientist Award in 2003, INSA Young Engineer Award in 2004, and also he is a J.C. Bose Fellow. He is also Fellow of many distinguished national and international academies and societies, including Royal Society of Chemistry, UK. So, let us listen to Suman. Suman, it's great to have you with us. So, how things are going, particularly after going through several peaks of this pandemic?
Yes, of course, pandemic has hit everybody very adversely, and many of us who have thought that we are possibly not doing that well, we are actually doing better than many others who may have lost their near ones and lost job. So many things happen, direct, indirect implications of pandemic. Coming to the academic scenario where both of us belong to, initially we never knew how to react to this. First came the teaching issues like online lectures and all. I am sure, it was same for most of our colleagues. We were not familiar with the online platforms for teaching classes, and students were not familiar in accepting this as a mode of teaching. So many of these things happened. Because of the heavy lockdown, lots of lab activities got sacrificed. These are all negative things, and as an individual, I would never like to ponder on that. My mindset is very positive, but this challenge gives us opportunities. So, as a researcher, with my experience in working with some of the areas of research which are related to human lives in some way or the other, I realized that this is an opportunity where we could perhaps connect with the needs, the very challenging needs that are there, not just from an India-centric viewpoint, but also from a global viewpoint. And that is how we directed or focused our research in a way which gave us outcome, I would say, perhaps the most impactful out of maybe around 20 years of research experience that I have. What I realized is that the COVID situation gave rise to a different challenge. Number one, a challenge because of non-availability or non-accessibility of high quality yet affordable diagnostic technologies for COVID. And number two, even if you forget about COVID, in the extreme resource poor settings where people are located, and because of travel restrictions and so many other issues, they cannot so easily now travel to doctors or hospitals or medical centers. So with all these, the need of point of care diagnostics, that is doing the diagnostic tests at the location of the patient, it migrated to the need of extreme point of care diagnostics. So how can we bridge this gap with innovation of technologies, where the technology is very advanced and robust on one side, at the same time simple, user friendly, cost effective, without quality compromise. We could come up with our one of the flagship technologies, that is COVID-RAP, the rapid nucleic acid based test for COVID detection. And when the body fluid or maybe a chemical sample, any sample which is flowing through that, even as something as simple as water, its transport through that or how it is flowing through that is going to influence heavily on the result of the test, because this capillary pumping will make sure that the sample gets moved along with that. And for example, for a rapid antigen test, if the viral antigen is there, the corresponding antibody which is sitting somewhere on that strip will capture this very effectively, and when that antigen antibody capturing happens, there will be a change in color, and that color is read out. So this is a simple technology, and this technology is the backbone of the so-called lateral flow paper strip for disease diagnostics, and it broadly falls under the purview of paper based microfluidics. So this has been there, but its inaccuracy has been a major concern. The RT-PCR test has been there, but its resource intensiveness was a major concern. So all we wanted to develop through an interdisciplinary approach is to bridge these two and come up with a technology which is, in terms of the quality output, like very much the nucleic acid test, which is the RT-PCR test, but may be disseminated like a rapid test. So in that way, we innovated a very simple device technology, where the entire procedure of the what happens in the real-time PCR machine, it could be miniaturized.
So it can be applied in
it can be applied across the spectrum,
across
and these technologies are very resource intensive.
So, yeah.
So why can't we, in the quest of developing a technology for COVID detection, develop a platform technology which could be applied across all these, maybe virus, bacteria, parasite, for nucleic acid testing. So in terms of heat transfer, we innovated a very compact portable heat transfer device which can do any pre-programmed piecewise isothermal nucleic acid testing. So this is called as PNAT. We gave it a name, PINAT, piecewise isothermal nucleic acid testing, which is a substitute of the PCR. All these nucleic acid tests or molecular diagnostics are very prone to contamination, and this is called as carryover contamination, and it spoils the result very badly. So we came up with certain microfluidic innovations in the device technology, which make sure that despite these obvious chances of contamination, etc., the accuracy of the solution is not compromised. In fact,
what did you study in your school?
So I studied. I was born not at Kolkata, but in my mother's place, that is in Chandan Nagar. It's a place in district Hooghly of West Bengal. But we, for all practical purposes, I have been brought up at Kolkata, because at my very tender age, even before schooling, we started living at Kolkata, in our grandparents' house, which is there. And after the usual kindergarten schooling and all those things, I went to the St. Lawrence High School, and I like this school very much, because every schooling is very important, and all of us are very passionate about our schools, right? Because this is the place where we have spent most the longest of our academic life, other than professional life, in our student life. Now if you realize, this school was very special, because First of all, it's very much green, very difficult to get in Kolkata, the kinds of places where we are sitting in Kharagpur. I mean, it's a green field. And but again, frankly speaking, I never thought that I will do scientific research. In my young days, things evolve in a different way. When I was very young, maybe at class 1 level, I wanted to be the driver of a bus. But when I came to class 11, 12 level, which is a transition, I came in contact with a wonderful teacher of physics, and I think I should mention that because I think that his classes completely changed my mindset as a scientific person. Professor Gomes from the St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. So I used to be taught by him in one of his private classes, where it is not like a modern day private coaching. Only few, maybe 4 or 5 students were there, and very like-minded people. So for the first time I realized that the development of a fundamental concept, insight and love, and converging science with philosophy and so many other things, it gives a different perspective of love for the scientific subject.
And why did you do your PhD?
So after graduating from Jadavpur University, where I did my undergraduate in mechanical engineering, so I did my masters first in IIT Bangalore, the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. And again, I mean, it also gave a different transition of outlook. So for the first time, I could get a feel of the research as a concept, because now undergraduate students have a lot of exposure to research, but in those days undergraduate students were mostly confined to the regular coursework based studies, and of course project, everything was there, but it was not that research centric. But I got exposed to research, and of course a wonderful advisor, Professor Dept, and it all again shaped my mindset in a way where I always tried to do something different as compared to what everybody else is doing. After my masters, I worked briefly in Jadavpur University as a lecturer, but on study leave I very quickly went to IIT Bangalore, and I continued with my PhD research
under the same professor. And
then what I realized is that, and this is what is a philosophy of research that I want to inculcate to my own students, that first to understand the difference between structured problem solving and research problem solving. The extreme open-endedness, at the time when I joined IIT Kharagpur roughly 20 years back, at that time in India, microfluidics was not known to be a subject of study. I mean, it was a subject which evolved over the past 10 years around that time, mostly with lot of influence from, say, the Western world. In research, I mean, what I have realized is that you cannot really plan and program. So I will give you one example, maybe from my early part of my research, and that still is very close to my heart. So if you have micro channels, so micro channels are very small channels, and micro channels are made up of manufacturing processes, which are, if they are not very controlled, it will be very rough channel. And what we expect, like even in our daily life, that if we are walking on a rough surface, we will experience more friction, and that is what we all anticipate. So after a lot of toil, when I first learned how to make these micro channels in a mechanical micro manufacturing process, which in those days was not very well established, so with one of our senior professors, who is now retired, Professor P.K. Mishra, we developed such channels. And one of my undergraduate students who was working on that, he reported me with lot of frustration that possibly something has gone wrong, I am trying to find out that the fluid flow, how fluid is flowing by applying a pumping force, and I am finding that the fluid is flowing very fast, but the channels what I am studying, these are very rough. So he was extremely disgusted, and in some hot summer days he was doing some undergraduate research, and he was almost in the verge of quitting that, thinking that it is completely wrong. Now my philosophy of doing research is that I like very much when things become non-intuitive, because that's the fun of doing science and research. So we looked into that problem, and we figured out that under that very strong confinement, because if the walls are very rough, the gap between the two walls may be very, very narrow, and these channels are made of hydrophobic, that is the walls which have a phobia for water, they do not like water. So what happens is that with extreme confinement, roughness, hydrophobicity, all combined together, you have a low density blanket. You can, in simple terms, a nanobubble. So a nanometer layer of low density blanket on the top of the rough walls. So when liquid is flowing, the liquid is, it's a fast track for liquid. The liquid is not experiencing the rough walls.
So you solved that problem.
And we call that as the rough makes it smooth. And in that way, we came up with something non-intuitive.
So about this interaction with students, how do you enjoy IIT Kharagpur? How do you find it as a place of academics and research here?
I would say that IIT Kharagpur is a remarkable place for taking up academic pursuit. The reason is, there are so many reasons, and I am not just telling because of emotion, my emotional attachment of this institute over the past 20 years or even beyond. The thing is that this is the oldest IIT, but because of being the oldest IIT, this is also the IIT which is having the maximum diversity in terms of academics, research, and the connectivity between these. For example, we have, when I joined IIT Kharagpur, I found that IIT Kharagpur is the first IIT to have something called a School of Medical Science and Technology. That SMST was established in 2001 and I joined in 2002. So it was very new at that time.
So you were also Dean of Sponsored Research and Industrial Consultancy, and you were coordinating various research activities under several projects across the departments. So how do you find that this ecosystem is helping our undergraduate researchers?
So there is a strong need for establishing a pipeline of this laboratory centric research to, I would say, outcome centric research. It could be product, it could be process, it could be software, anything. Recognizing that, we have established a very vibrant technology transfer undergraduate student group in this R&D ecosystem, this sponsored research and industrial consultancy. But what I realize is that, say, what is the difference between a researcher who is working, say, in MIT, Stanford or any other big university, and somebody who is sitting at IIT Kharagpur and doing work here? Science is very fundamental and very same, like it is universal. Newton's law doesn't change if we go from India to USA. But the technology requirement is very local. At the end, IITs are technology centric institutes. So as an Indian Institute of Technology, we must have impact of the technology influencing the society, economy, livelihood.
Yeah, it's very fascinating, your engagement and your vision. Tell me about your family.
Family happens to be the backbone of anybody who wants to do something which is like academics and research. And I would say that this convergence of love with profession, it is true for studies, it is true also for family. So we really do not have any distinction between the family life and professional life, because the 24 hours.
So how do you balance?
It's a combination.
You are a busy administrator, researcher.
So I would give a lot of credit to I'll for at least the present challenging time, a lot of credit to my wife, because if you see in this very difficult time, it is not just important to to be safe on in the perspective of your health and other things, but also to look after your near and dear ones. My son is young and he needs to be looked after, and he.
So you spend time with him also?
Yeah, I mean I spend time with him in whenever.
Does he complain? Does he complain about not getting you enough?
He sometimes complains of not getting me completely in the way he wished, but his presence had made me fitter, because time and again I go to the sports complex, and I have realized that now I am into possibly the 40th year of my cricket. And of course from early days, lot of credit to my own parents, because you cannot become, forget about successful, you cannot become anything until and unless you have outstanding sacrificing parents.
So they must be very proud of you now.
No, I mean see, of course they are proud, and I am also very proud of my family.
Right.
Because without this.
Now, in fact, Suman, we are very proud of you.
No, I mean it is my great. It makes me humble.
Yeah. So thanks, and we are just coming to the end of this conversation. So, any message to our young researchers, students from Professor Suman Chakraborty?
Well, I mean, normally we give lots of messages to the students in different forms, classes, beyond classes, and that as research supervisors we also have lots of out of class interactions with students. We even go with them for outings, picnics, and several other things. But what I tell is that that is all what I have always realized from my heart, that you will never do things well if you are not enjoying it. So if we are overstructured and thinking too much deeply about how it will help our career and other things, you will lose the fun of doing what you are doing. So enjoy what you are doing with a lot of passion. Do it honestly, sincerely, with your hardest work.
Thanks, Suman. Thanks for spending time with us and also sharing your thoughts.
It was a great pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Thank you very much, and wish you all the best, and looking forward more from you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.